Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Gina. Tonight I'm going to do a review of a book. It's probably the most difficult book I've had to review. It's been very controversial among Elvis's fans. It's Softly As I Leave You by Beaulieu, Life After Elvis. I had no intention of buying it. I didn't. I borrowed it from the library. I was actually a bit shocked to see that it was in our library. They've got no other books about Elvis. Well, I think there might be one. But other than that, nothing. Why they put this in there? It's all sensationalism, isn't it? All the media. Anyway, I've pretty much read it. It's got to go back to the library tomorrow. So, yeah, I've got to do this review tonight. I've made notes, gone through the pages as I've read them and made a few notes here and there. So, I'll start off just reading bits and pieces that I've marked. Obviously I can't read the whole book. When I left Elvis, I was 27 years old. I spent half of my life as his wife or girlfriend, going straight from my parents' home to his. I knew nothing about the world outside his orbit. My choice to leave was terrifying for me and unfathomable to his fans. What they didn't understand was that I did not leave Elvis because I no longer loved him. I loved him as much on the day I left as the day we married, which probably wasn't either. Sorry, there will be comments. I left Elvis because I needed a life of my own. What happened to the marriage vows? Did they actually have the vows at Elvis's wedding? I don't know. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. How selfish. I needed a life of my own, so I'll just leave my husband and, it happens. I know it happens. Just as Elvis was searching for the meaning of his life, I was searching for mine. Big difference. Sorry, I'm going to get carried away. Please forgive me. The split with Elvis was complicated and long in coming. We'd been together 13 years when I left, almost half of my life. Wow. The world outside was changing, but behind the gates of Graceland, things remained the same. Not really. Now, I think in her first book she said that words to the effect, she might have not have said that Elvis groomed her, but she certainly said that he told her what to wear and what makeup to wear and how to wear her hair. Oh no. Here we are, she's toned it down a bit now. The expectation for girls in the 60s was to find and secure a good husband. I worked hard to meet those expectations. I went to charm school to learn how to dress and do my makeup. My attitude suited Elvis, who was also a product of his generation. He loved to buy me pretty things, beautiful clothes. I happily took his advice on clothing and makeup as he shaped me into his perfect woman. I didn't resent it. I embraced it. I wanted to please my man. Doesn't that sound different from some of the other things she said in movies and other books? Anyway, so that's the way she contradicted herself. For many years they guided my marriage. I loved caring for Elvis. For 4 years they were married? Cherished the role of the devoted homemaker. Yep. Whenever we stayed at the ranch when we didn't have staff, I eagerly and lovingly took over Elvis's care. Every night I laid out his pyjamas and I took on the roles of the servants by day. Yep, sorry. Much has been made of the 10-year age gap between us, but it wasn't unusual in the South. And this is what she's written here is quite factual. It wasn't considered paedophilia. After all, 33-year-old Rhett Butler had first attracted Scarlett O'Hara when she was 16. Of course, they were fictional characters, but they were symbolic of a cultural reality. Jerry Lee Lewis had famously married his wife when she was 13. So had Edgar Allan Poe, another Southern icon. I fortunately wasn't a child bride. Though Elvis and I had started a relationship when I was 14, it didn't become romantic until I was 17. We waited to have sex until he married me at 21. Well, that's debatable. There was some logic to an age gap between spouses, and she goes on to explain the benefits of that at the time. Elvis was a Southern man who expected his woman to be pretty, submissive and charming, 24 hours a day. The problem, of course, was as I grew into adulthood, the power imbalance created by the age gap with Elvis remained. It was difficult for us to have a marriage of equals when Elvis was used to being in charge. Well, what's different to most marriages? I don't know about these days, but my marriage was never any different. My man was always in charge. We had equality for sure, and we argued about things, and he listened to me and I listened to him. But to me, he was 6 years older than me. 6 years, not 10 years, 6 years. And he was the boss, and I loved it. I did my best to meet all his expectations. I never learned to cook. Yeah. Oh, but she cooked for him at the range, didn't she? With a full staff at Graceland, I didn't need to. I made attempts to cook a meal in the beginning, but the results were barely edible, at least she's honest. I was clearly not destined to be a chef, but I was careful to ensure that Elvis got his favourite foods on top. What a load of crap. The staff at Graceland would have known. You see, I listened to Elvis talk endlessly, sometimes all night, even when he read me passages from philosophy books at 3 in the morning. I tried never to question his behaviour. He resented anything that sounded like criticism, don't we all? He felt no need to explain his relationships with other women. I was to trust him and ignore what I might hear. Well, yeah, okay. Elvis never forced me to do any of these things. Both of us knew what the expectations were when I married him. Thank you. And for a long time, I accepted them. Elvis's behaviour fit the standards of the time. In many ways, he was a good husband. He never abused me. What did the other book say? Physically or emotionally. Though his temper could be explosive, he rarely exploded at me. With me, he was usually gentle and often tender. He was extremely generous. Bought me beautiful things, gifts, amazing jewellery. I still wear the diamond cross he gave me. It's a wonder she didn't sell it along with everything else. I had much to be grateful for in my marriage. Well, probably a lot more than a lot of other women. The difference between him and other husbands, he was Elvis Presley. Yes. He had money, a loyal entourage, constantly serving his needs, and millions of fans. But I loved him, and because I did, I strove to be the perfect Southern wife of the era. Eventually, though, the struggle wore me down, and I began to feel like a proverbial bird in a gilded cage. How many of us women would like to feel like that? How many of you out there either live with an abusive man or have friends or relations in abusive relationships? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have been married to someone like Elvis, who loved you that much, who gave you everything you wanted? Okay, the other women, but he always came back to you. He lived in a world of his own making. He really was the king of all he surveyed. We, the guys and I, slept when he slept, ate when he ate, watched what he liked on TV, and so on. It was normal to me for a long time. I didn't question it. The hard part for me, now this is annoying, was the people who made up Elvis's little kingdom. They were all male. I mean, she had, how many years did she have to get rid of that? Used to that. 17, 18, 4 years to get used to that before she married him. Elvis and I weren't the typical married couple. We were 2 people plus an all-male entourage. I was seldom alone with my husband. Well, there's ways and means, my dear. When I set the table for our breakfast in the late afternoon when Elvis usually woke up, I never put out just 2 place settings. At least 6 of the guys usually ate with us. When I cuddled up with Elvis to watch television, there were men scattered around the room watching with us. They'd laugh and comment and cheer when Elvis shot up the TV set. They came on trips with us, stayed in the hotel we stayed. Except for a few precious days on our honeymoon at our house in Palm Springs, I shared him with the guys. About the only time I had him to myself was when we went to bed in the early hours of the morning. Half your luck, baby. I never complained, for I didn't want to be seen as whining or nagging. I was trying to be the perfect wife, so sharing Elvis for the guys all the time was something I had to accept. Okay, Elvis was surrounded by men who took care of his every need and were generously rewarded in return. They were both his friends and his staff, and the inner circle was his family. He trusted them. In a world when it wasn't always safe to be Elvis Presley, they formed a wall of protection around him. So, okay, I'll keep reading. Individually, I liked most of them. That's not what I hear from some of the guys. In some cases, like Joey Esposito, they became my friends too. But the fact remained that the Memphis Mafia, a nickname they loved, was made up entirely of men. I was the only woman living in a man's world, whether we were at Graceland, in LA, or at our weekend home in Palm Springs. Now, there's another on 288. Billy and Joe Smith touched on this in a recent episode of their YouTube channel, Elvis Fans Matter. Somebody wrote in, one of their subscribers wrote in and said, Linda talked about when Elvis and she and Billy and Joe and other friends, family, sometimes went up in Elvis's bedroom on a huge bed and they sat around and talked. They talked about religion, they talked about music, all sorts of stuff. There was a lovely family group. Did Priscilla ever do that? Did she ever, or did you ever go up to Elvis's bedroom with Priscilla and have those sort of talks? And Billy said, Joe said straight out, no, Priscilla wasn't like that. No, she wanted Elvis all to herself. So, what I'm getting at here, getting back to this statement about it was a man's world. There were the wives. Joe Smith has often said that when Priscilla, those first 4 years before they were married, and probably after as much as she could, they were friends. And Patsy Gamble, and Joni Esposito, all the girls, the wives and the girlfriends, were with Priscilla. They didn't leave her out of anything. She was not on her own with a bunch of men. She had a lot of women who around her also when Elvis wasn't there, who took her out, took her to movies, took her shopping, did all the things that girls do. So that's a blatant lie. Sorry. Okay. Okay, and then there was the guys, the waiting girls, they're always long line outside our home. Very pretty girls queued up at the gate hoping to see Elvis. The girls were the embodiment of my worst nightmare, all of them eager to replace me. What an overactive bloody imagination. They were bloody fans who wanted to see him. But just this attitude, Elvis belongs to me, he belonged to the world. And she was just too immature to get that. Sometimes they'd choose a few of the prettiest girls, and not always the prettiest, some of the nicest girls, and bring them in to meet Elvis. I squirmed with the memory of how I'd met Elvis the same way. I still wasn't sure why Elvis had chosen me, and I feared being replaced. Elvis had been single back then, but even married, he was accustomed to having pretty girls escorted to his presence. He'd talk to them and read to them from the Bible and from books on Eastern philosophy, and he could never resist flirting with them. He enjoyed charming them. And listen to this. He held the girls over my head as a threat. He'd say, if you don't want to listen to me, there's plenty of girls who will. So I don't believe that. Maybe I don't know. I don't know Elvis. Maybe he did, but I just find that hard to believe. It was, and then she goes on about what the guys did when I'm making movies, how the guys played up on their wives, and then she goes on about Aunt Margaret. When he started touring, the girls throwing their room keys on stage for him. I mean, he usually had women with him anyway at the time. Yeah. And then she says, Elvis lost interest in me sexually once Lisa was born. He'd never been able to make love to a woman who's had a child. Again, crap. A lot of his girlfriends had written books, lived with him. Oh, no, okay, Linda hadn't had a child. But what's her name? Barbara Lee. And the woman out of the Embassy Special. Forget her name now. But yeah, quite a few of Elvis's girlfriends had had children before in previous relations. That was just so much rubbish. So much rubbish. He might have been a bit funny about it. He's put his mother on a pedestal after Lisa was born. He put me on a pedestal. I don't think so. I don't think that's crap. Elvis remained flirtatious and very affectionate with me, but that was all. He was hesitant to have another child. That's another thing I don't believe. Elvis, in all those years, the early years, and all the interviews he did, people already asked him, and it's on record. You listen to him saying, when he was younger, I want to get married and have children. I don't want my child to be an only child. I was an only child. I want more than one child. He would have loved, I reckon God, here I am. I know there's people out there, I think, Sapphire Blue, if you're watching this, you'll be having a go at me. Anita would have been a great wife for him. She was stable. She married one man and had children with him. And that, to me, was what I think Elvis all along would have loved. A wife to have more than one, several children, multiple children. He loved children. Look at the way he loved Lisa. He idolised her. And he just he poured all that love into that one girl. And maybe that wasn't such a good thing, poor girl, in view of what happened. But anyway, roaming here. She says, he was hesitant to have another child. I'd gotten pregnant the first time we made love. His hesitation intensified my fears. The loneliness and sense of helplessness weighed heavier with every passing month. It was exhausting. I felt like I was, as the song goes, caught in a trap with no way out. I never want to experience that fear, that insecurity again. Small wonder I became involved in an affair with my karate instructor, Mike Stone. Wasn't the first one. What happened to the first one? Let's see. What neither of us foresaw was the way karate empowered me. I was good at it. Yep. So, and after years of feeling helpless, it was wonderful to have mastery of my body and my environment. I don't have shit, God. Duh. When Elvis was away from home performing and spending time with other people, I spent hours training with Mike. My self-confidence grew and I experienced more of the outside world. Yeah. For the first time, I began to see a different way of living. Well, you should have been content with the way you were living. Okay. Let's go on. The close friendship that Mike and I had developed turned into an affair. The affair, of course, was wrong. Gee, she admits it. Mike and I were married, however I rationalised it, and both of us had children. But as a young woman experiencing the exhilaration of being desired again, I fell headlong into the relationship. Wow. Well, at least she's truthful. Okay, what else have we got? Let's pray to 3 to 5, 6, only man living in a world, page 9. Same old story about Elvis. Yep. Page 11, affair with Mike Stone. Yep, okay. Do tell. The last paragraph, getting pregnant with Lisa. Oh, yes. Yes. When I first... Contrary to rumour, though my involvement with Mike was not the reason I left Elvis. The marriage had been crumbling for years. They'd only been married 4 years. And when it finally imploded, Mike Stone was just one catalyst. The other was Lisa Marie. When I first learned I was pregnant with Lisa, I'd been stunned. Elvis and I had only been married a few weeks. Until we married, I stayed home at Graceland for 4 years as his girlfriend, while Elvis led a glamorous life in Hollywood. Well, that was his job. Jeez. Our wedding had meant I could finally come out in the open. I could now travel with Elvis, attend public events, and claim him as my own in the eyes of the world. See what I mean? Absolute, utter immaturity. He was never your own, Priscilla. He was never your own. He had family. He had friends. He had fans. He had the world. He wasn't just yours. You had to share him, and you didn't see it. I was so excited, but when I got pregnant on my wedding night, those dreams fell apart. Neither Elvis nor I was ready for a child. He worried about what fatherhood would do to his career. I don't know about that. His fans were still adjusting to him being a married man. I don't believe that either. Most of us that I know of, we were pleased, we're happy for him. He was 31 years old and married, can have children. Our Elvis, married and having children. Beautiful. I mean, okay, there's a few people that might have been obsessed and think, oh, I thought I was going to marry Elvis. The reality is we knew we weren't going to marry Elvis, let alone meet him. But his anxiety went beyond his career. He had never been around children and was unprepared to raise a child. Well, how many people go through that with their first child? You're not the only ones, darling. I, on the other hand, knew exactly what we were going into. As the oldest of 6 children, I knew about diapers, the baby's constant need for attention, the lack of sleep. There would be no travelling, no romantic interludes for us to focus on each other. For weeks, Elvis and I worried in silence about what was to come. I even wondered how I'd feel if I had an accident and miscarried. It was Elvis who finally brought things to a head. He looked at me one day and asked if I wanted to have an abortion. He told me I'd support whatever he wanted. His words were a wake-up call. I began to cry. No, we can't do that. This is our baby. Things changed after that. We were bringing a new life into the world, a new generation. And then she goes on about, about, and as Lisa was a baby when Elvis, you know, loved her, but, you know, he never did any of the hard, tough stuff like changing diapers and having a bathing her and all that sort of rubbish, yeah. At first, Lisa and I went to Elvis with Elvis to Palm Springs on the weekends, in part because of my well-founded fear of giving somebody else a chance to take my place in my absence. The desert house wasn't a good environment for a child. It was too hot to be outside, and there were no other kids around. Well, she obviously didn't make any attempt to make friends with anyone. Like I said, Elvis's friends and family, children. At that time, none of the guys had children. It was the same all-male world I was accustomed to, that you're accustomed to. You should have stayed accustomed to. Elvis would stay up until the television station closed down for the night. Put Lisa to bed and watch TV with him. And she said, when our daughter would wake up and start crying, Elvis didn't want me to go to her. He wanted me to stay with him. I doubt that. From what you hear about Elvis, he would have been the first one to run to Lisa to comfort her. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Next. Page 27, second paragraph. Flip. Let's see. Elvis. Oh, yeah, after they got divorced. She said he phoned him all the time. Went on for an hour. Talked. He let me know what was going on and talk about some argument he'd had with his dad or the other guys. I never knew when he was going to call. It happened at all hours. He'd take the moment when his girlfriend was out. If she was there, he'd use the phone in his bathroom or dressing room while she was in the other room. After Mike and I broke up, I would take the call in another room if I was with someone when the phone rang. And she generally was, wasn't she? I never acknowledged that the caller was Elvis if I was with another man. Oh, God. Yeah. Talk about ruining the mood. Elvis never asked if I had a boyfriend. I never discussed my boyfriends with him. I don't think he'd want to know. Conversely, I never discussed with Elvis with anyone I was dating. I didn't date a lot of men. No, she only lived with them. Only lived with them and had a baby, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then she says, and contrary to some tell-all interviews, he never called when I was making love to someone. Well, here, she says he called at all hours of the night. How would he know? Ah, jeez. And then he goes how he spent time talking to her and, you know, no, I'm sorry. He's still dating Linda. I'm still dating. Is she treating her well? Yeah. I understand that Elvis had to have a woman. He had to have a woman by his side since birth. He did not want to be alone. Once he became famous, it was important to his image. Not just his image, to be seen with a beautiful woman. When Linda left him 4 years after I had, he was desperate. He had been his first serious relationship after me, and now she had left too. But maybe Priscilla didn't realise, didn't know or didn't want to know, that Elvis already had someone else. Ginger Alden was waiting in the wings when Linda and Elvis split up. Elvis, I know this because I was there at that hotel in San Francisco the night we saw Elvis in concert. That night, Elvis and Linda had an argument and she flew back to Memphis, packed her things up at Graceland and left. She knew that Elvis had another woman in the hotel on the floor underneath. Probably one of the guys that spilled the beans. Who knows? But anyway, it was true. So, you know, she didn't, yeah. Well, yeah, she left him, but not because they're going to say, what does she say? Oh, yeah. I forgot. Lost my train of thought here. The fact that, yeah, what did she say? She said something about Linda leaving him and he was desperate because I don't think he was too upset. I think he was disappointed that she walked out on him. He didn't have the chance to turf her out, but he would have eventually because Ginger wouldn't have put up with anything. And 20 years old, too young to cut. Have a listen to this. Ginger, she was a very pretty young woman. Was she in love with him? Nobody close to Elvis thought so. Excuse me. She was only 20 years old, too young to cope with Elvis's complex needs. Well, look who lived with Elvis between the time she was 17 and 21. Were you too young to cope with Elvis's complex needs? Yes, you were. Not you, sorry, I'm meaning Priscilla. Oh, I told you I'd get carried away. I think I'm going to have to delete this and start again. Okay, 27, 20, 43 and 46. Let's see. Oh, and then she's a chapter about all her boyfriends, all the men she's lived with and their artistic temperaments and who she's lived with and when she was in bed with this person and that person and... Oh, sorry. Oh, dare I say it? Priscilla was a slut. Absolute slut. 45. Oh, yeah. Elvis to deal with, complicating things. He always complicated things. He had an unfortunate habit, and this is in the book, over and over again. He had an unfortunate habit of phoning late at night when I was with another man. It happened with Robert Kardashian. One night, Robert was sound asleep in bed with me. Charming. When the phone rang at 2 a.m. Fortunately, he was a sound sleeper, so I leapt out of bed, grabbed the phone before it woke him. I tiptoed down the hall to the guest bedroom and shut the door to listen to the familiar voice. Elvis was calling from the hotel after a performance. It went great tonight, Silla. I sang the shit out of everything and the crowd went crazy. You should have seen them. It was a full house. Damn, I was knocking them out. Well, I can imagine Elvis saying that. The excited voice went on and on. As usual, there was no, "Hi, Satin, how are you?" Not even a hello, as far as that went. The only reason he knew I was there was my murmured, wow, great, as he drew breath in between words. It hadn't crossed his mind that I might have been asleep. It certainly never occurred to him that I might be with another man. Despite our divorce, he couldn't still wrap his head around my being with someone else. That's crap. He would have gone ballistic, maybe, if he'd known Rob was in my bedroom. I don't think so. Listen to this. I put my hand over my mouth to stifle the sound of my yawn while Elvis continued to talk. He was excited as a kid. You've got the world, the biggest superstar in the world, telling you how excited he is about his performance, and you yawned. And she goes on now about she never stopped loving him, how much she loves him. I'm sorry, this book, it makes me want to throw up. And then she goes, we've got a chapter about Elvis's drugs, the pills, and why he was taking them. Elvis, drug. She writes, keeping Elvis healthy required continual care and monitoring. For years, I took responsibility for it. I don't think so. I kept a close eye on him, making sure he ate regularly and sitting with him until he fell asleep. Yeah? Doubt it. You were too bored. Linda Thompson did the same thing, only Linda actually did it. This is one of the reasons the family and the guys and their wives liked her. Elvis's need had only increased after I left. Linda had to deal with more than I had. I think I had the best of him. But when she left, Elvis began spiralling rapidly downhill. Elvis' deterioration wasn't just physical, he was declining mentally as well. Really? I'd like to know what Joe and Billy Smith. Somebody asked Joe and Billy if they'd read this book and they said no, and I don't think they're going to. I'd really like their comments on some of this. By then he was taking a staggering amount of prescription opioids and barbiturates, including high doses of that have demerol, codeine, blah, blah. These medications were designed for those with severe pain problems in the last stage of illness, not for regular use. Now, Dr. Nick, in his book, he and other doctors knew that Elvis had serious health issues. High blood pressure, an enlarged heart, glaucoma, fatty liver, diabetes, I think. I think they found that, might have found that after the autopsy. And his colon, which of course, the chronic constipation over his life. He was in pain. I mean, how often did Kathy Westmoreland and some of the other guys, and Elvis's father, and Colonel Parker, they all saw Elvis in extreme pain at times. And he had to take those tablets because he wanted to get up on the stage. And don't give me the shit about he had to make money for Colonel Parker, or he had to make money. Okay, he did, you know, he was the catalyst, he was the person making the money to pay the bills. But if there's no Elvis, they would have all had to find other jobs, which they did when he died anyway. But she hasn't, Priscilla, even now, hasn't recognised the fact, hasn't mentioned the fact that Elvis had serious health problems for the last few years of his life, or probably even before that. But it got really bad, and that's why he had to take those tablets. Most of those tablets kept him alive. They didn't kill him, they kept him alive. Of course, in the long run, any amount of tablets like that will, well, let's say, kill you, but yeah, not good for you. So it was a toxic combination. Elvis is ill, and the medications he had to take helped him stay alive, but they also made him sick. That's very, very sad. Poor guy. Okay, I'm sorry. Just make me cry. Okay, page 64 and 65. She goes into Scientology. Oh yeah, well I don't want to do bloody Scientology. Elvis wasn't interested in that, so I'm certainly not. Page 64, page 86 and 88. Elvis's Lisa's accusation. Oh yes, oh well. Here we are, the truth comes out. Lisa, my daughter was a conundrum, complicated and challenging. A free spirit determined to rest the soul. You little girl. Yeah. Anyway, so she addresses this business with Michael, the guy that, well, we all know. Okay, she mentioned other boyfriends that she has too in this time. Funnily enough, there's no photos of her with her various boyfriends. I wonder why. I don't see dare putting them in the book. There's photos, plenty of photos with her and Elvis, yeah. Okay, Michael Edwards. I think it was Michael Edwards, the one that, the model, yeah, that she was living with, had an alcohol-induced alter ego. If he had too much to drink at a party, he would take it on himself to provide the entertainment. And she goes on to a few of the pretty disgusting things that he did. In front of Lisa, child, yeah. So between Priscilla and Lisa, Michael did these things, yeah. Had too much to drink. He had a double personality, so sweet, so nice, so helpful. Emerged when he drank too much, a dark quality that I found disturbing. I couldn't reconcile the two Michaels. Well, I mean, if you don't trust someone that much, you walk away from them. You don't continue living with them. Lisa and Michael had a complicated relationship. They shouldn't have had a relationship at all. Anyway, goes on to say that when she was 14, she went home from a business trip, and Lisa said Michael came into her room. Oh, and I questioned him, and I confronted him, and he made up things, and I kept a close eye on things while I was figuring out what I should do. Far out! God, I really said something else then. What I should do, you should have outed him at the house and never seen him again. All right, page 109, let's go on to Marco. No, let's not go on to Marco Garibaldi. A few months into our relationship, he moved in with me. All these guys that moved in with her, didn't they have houses of their own? Jeez. We remained together for 22 years. 22 years since she had a son by him. And she said she loved Elvis all that time. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm absolutely disgusted. Absolutely disgusted. Okay, page 207. Let's get on. There's always about friggin' Marco and her other bloody boyfriends. Ah, Jesus Christ. You want to read this book after I finish? Sorry if you do. Okay, she goes on about the postage stamp and how she designed it and he thought it was wonderful. Right. Yeah, well, oh crap. There's something here, 207. Oh, the first paragraph. Yes. Oh, okay. But she goes on about how she got involved in helping animals and stuff. I have provided a voice for animals. Right. His story, Elvis. Elvis was famous for his voice, but it was silenced long before he could say so much of what he thought and felt. Worse yet, his story has often been told by people who never knew him, and people who knew him told lies. At worst, they magnify and focus on his failures, as you did, Priscilla, and shortcomings. At best, they stereotype him. Oh, Tiger! Shot the bloody cat. This distortion of his character is partly due to the manner of his passing. Oh, excuse me for a minute. I'll just shut the cat up. I'm already stressed out here. Listen, stop it. Out. Go on. Go away. How long has this been going for? Oh, 33 minutes. Well, you'll be glad to know I've nearly finished. Okay. This distortion of his character is partly due to the manner of his passing. If Elvis had died in bed at 90, surrounded by his daughter, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, his last years would have been treated with respect. Instead, he died face down on the bathroom carpet with an overload of drugs in his system. That reality has coloured the public understanding of him ever since. It created a false perception. Not to his fans, it didn't. Elvis was a remarkable human being. Gee, thanks. Yes, he was flawed, as all of us are. Yeah, some of us more so. But he was a flawed diamond. He was passionate, loving, generous, artistically brilliant, and utterly unique. I want the world to remember the man I remember, even more clearly with the passage of time. I want to give Elvis a voice, to say the things he never got to. I want to represent him publicly for the man he was. Really? And you make films showing him to be a monster? Oh no, it gets worse. It gets fucking worse. Bloody hypocrite. Pitch 241, where are we? Oh, God, I've got to finish this thing. She goes on about when she first met Elvis. And we've heard all this sort of before. Oh, for God's sake, Tiger. About he, when he just lost his mother and how he confided in her and all that sort of stuff. And how his dad had a hard time letting me move to Memphis when I was 17. Elvis wanted me there. No. Well, he did, didn't he? Because he actually said that to his father. He couldn't make up his mind between Anita and Elvis. And poor Anita heard it and walked out. What? If she hadn't have walked out, if she had have fought for Elvis's love, and she did have Elvis's love, what a different outcome it would have been. What a different outcome it would have been. Okay. 241. Oh no, I read that. 267. 267 to 268. I don't normally smack my cat. She's driving me mad. Okay. I don't know how many movies and documentaries have been made about Elvis. Well, I do. And his fans do. The numbers changes yearly sometimes. What a load of shit. Imagine what it's like to watch movies about cherished family members made by someone who never met them. You notice every little factual error, resent misjudgments about their character, wonder why they didn't include the things you consider most important. Yeah, like the film that you made, darling. Why they did include things you think are inconsequential. Okay, rah. And then she goes on about Baz Luhrmann's movie. Well, actually, she liked that, and she goes on about that. And I've got to agree. I know a lot of his fans, Elvis fans, didn't like that movie. Didn't like Austin Butler, but well, it's that's people's perception. People don't know. I understand. I get you. Elvis is okay. This is interesting. She talks about Colonel Parker. There were two Colonel Parkers. One was the manager who would do anything to make a dollar, the man who sold Elvis for a living. He was self-serving in that role, putting profit above everything else. He was a cold-hearted negotiator who you didn't want to cross. But there was another Colonel Parker, the one who lived a great love story in his relationship with his wife. The Colonel was one of the most tender and devoted husbands I've ever seen. He would do anything for his wife, Marie Frances Parker. This would included walking away from business to taking care of her himself when she was ill. That Colonel Parker wasn't in the movie. The Colonel has taken a lot of criticism for booking Elvis so heavily during the last couple of years he toured. Undoubtedly, Elvis' health was failing then, and it was increasingly difficult for him to get through a performance. But Elvis also had a big payroll to beat every month, as his father often reminded him. Many people depended on Elvis for a living. And though he loved relaxing at Graceland, he would miss performing after a while. He needed his fans just as they needed him. Elvis came alive on stage. He wanted those scenes. He wanted those tours. There were days when Elvis's health and drug intake were debilitating. When he did go on stage, he struggled to get through his act. On rare occasions, he had to cancel the shows. We know all this. Because his shows were always sold out, cancelling them meant leaving 1,000 or more people in their seats disappointed when an announcement was made over the PA system. And every time he stumbled on stage or cancelled, speculation ran wild. The tabloids blared sensational headlines speculating about what was wrong with Elvis Presley. Getting him on stage by whatever means necessary wasn't solely a financial decision. It was a way of avoiding a public relations nightmare. Anyway, I'm going to do, I will do a review of the book that I've got about Colonel Parker, which I think is the best one. I've been talking about that for a while. Anyway, here we go. I'd seen myself in films and documentaries about Elvis, but it never occurred to me that someone would want to make a film about me. Nah, it didn't occur to you. You wanted it, bitch. I was surprised that Sophia Coppola called to say she wanted to make a movie based on my book. Oh, yeah. It was clear she was concerned about doing things sensitively and getting the story right. Yeah. She sent me a copy of the script and I felt safe in trusting my story to Sophia. Oh, and it goes on about how it was underfunded and everything. And there wasn't time or enough cast of people. The fictional Graceland with the full Memphis Mafia. The cast didn't fill the screen the way they had filled my life. The emphasis was on me and the loneliness I struggled when Elvis was away from home. My only concern about the film is Lisa. The movie would look at Elvis from a different perspective. Bloody oath it did. And I wasn't sure Lisa would be comfortable with that. She wasn't, to say the least. She was appalled by Sophia's script. I can understand her feelings. I put myself in her position and realised I would have mixed emotions too. This was her father. And now a woman who didn't know him was making a film about it. Well, why did she go ahead with it? Because her friggin' ego was bigger than all of them. She said the script portrayed her father as vengeful and contemptuous. Lisa believed that Elvis was being characterised as a predator and manipulator. She also thought Sophia was manipulating me, and the film would portray my perspective on Elvis inaccurately. Yeah. And Sophia said, I hope when you see the film you will feel differently and understand that I'm taking great care in honouring your mother while also presenting your father with sensitivity and complexity. Oh my God! What next? Okay. What have I got? Page 285. 285. I'm nearly finished. I've only got a couple of other things to do. Why did I do that? Oh, no. Don't know why. Page 315. That's about Lisa dying and Priscilla justifying her actions at that time. Okay, this is the last chapter. Reliving the trauma in my life has been challenging. I learned my mind simply refuses to remember certain things. This is her justifying the mistake she's made. It blocks them out to protect me. In reconstructing the experience of losing my loved ones, I have had to rely on the memories of those closest to me, people who were there at the time. The Memphis Mafia, Elvis's friends. I have even consulted the footage that was shot of those events, sometimes by paparazzi who filmed me without my consent. I remember many individual moments and I remember the feelings, but there are gaps. And listen to this. My interview with Piers Morgan in the wake of Lisa's passing is an example. Piers was empathetic and kind, and I allowed myself to connect emotionally with my grief. But in the process, I confused the chronology of the events following Elvis's passing. That's when she said Lisa was with her in California, and she had to fly her to Memphis to see her because her father had died. Yeah, right. My mind went into overload, but I don't remember things like that. God! Conjuring up 8 decades of memories is challenging for anyone, even more so for someone who's lived a life as eventful as mine. People my age have bucket lists. I don't, because I've already experienced everything I've dreamed of. Well, aren't you friggin' lucky? Ugh. I had my fairy tale wedding to the most famous celebrity in the world. Bitch. Bitch! Sorry. Where is it? No. Anyway. I believe that love endures. This is the last now. I continue to be asked why I never married again. The answer is simple. I never wanted to. Even though we divorced, Elvis and I remained together spiritually until he died. He is still with me. He's still with everyone, darling, not just you. His fans believe he is with them, with us too. One of my most precious memories of him occurred in the years following our separation, though he formed other relationships. Listen, although he reformed other relationships after we parted. And didn't she do the same thing? She doesn't mention that. That's just him. He reformed other relationships. One memorable evening we embraced closely as we always did before we left. This time he looked him in the eye and he let go and said, I will always love you, Saturn. It was important to him that I knew that. I don't believe a bloody word of it. There's the book. Take it or leave it. It's back to the library and I never want to see it again. Thanks for watching. Bye.